So welcome to Open Mic Night number 52. So my name is Blaise van Hecke. I'm half of Busybird Publishing. Okay. There's a few new readers, which is cool. Thanks for coming. Well, thanks for everyone coming, of course. But yeah, it's good to see some new faces as well. Patrick. I have Patrick here who has a poem. Yep. You're going to come up and read. He's got Jacko and McPhee. Come on up.
Jacko and McPhee. Jacko and McPhee have set up camp going on about a week on the east bank side of King Park Creek, slowly making their way down to King Lake to meet up with Bluey, the long-time bushmate. "They'll be all the way up by morn," remarked McPhee, taking the billy off the boil, poured himself and Jacko a brew of tea. "Say, Jacko, you remember old Dave?" "I'm sure you do. Old Dave from Old Wells near Cockatoo." Jacko raised his eyebrows, giving a glancing sideways look. McPhee just shook his head, knowing Jacko and that look. "Well, that's how you feel. Well, I'll tell you anyway. It's just I heard old Dave up and died some time back away." As McPhee clenched and dropped out the fire, in the distance crickets sounded their nightly choir. Jacko yawned, stretched, lay back his head, and McPhee ruffled and shuffled with his makeshift bed. It was some days later they found Jacko and McPhee dead, laying side by side in a dried up river bed. In the black and burnt out bush, what more could be said? They were among the casualties of the catastrophic Black Saturday. Now, if you're ever out about, up around Florida way, be it in the evening or any time of day, and you hear a whispering wind blow through the trees, some folks say it sounds like the voice of old McPhee. And perhaps even still, in the early hours of the morning, you might hear Jacko barking at his master for warning.
Okay. Michelle, I might start. Oh, you're in the front. Michelle. Michelle is going to read Travelling with Cardboard Paul.
As you know, this is my gorgeous husband Paul, who passed away 22 months ago. And when he was lying on his deathbed, he said to me, "Michelle, what are you going to do when I'm gone?" And I said, "I'm going to travel," because we always planned to go travelling. So he said, "Well, you know, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, well, what I'm going to do is travel to Europe and wherever we plan to go." And I said, "What I'm going to do is get a life-size photo of you and take you with me, and I'll pack you down and take you out, and we'll take photos of all the sites." And he said, "You know what?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." So early last year, I booked a 9-week tour around the world. I love Paul McCartney, as people would know me, and I thought, well, Paul McCartney's not getting any younger, and because he's 75 and he's not going to tour to Australia, so I'm going to go and see him. So I booked 2 tickets for New York, one in New Jersey and the other one at Madison Square Gardens. So about $1,000 later, plus the rest of the tour, I booked my trip. So we went to, we started off on a 16-day tour around California, and I packed him in my suitcase, and I was worried, sick about being picked up in customs. And pulling him out and they're going, "Who the hell is this?" I'm going, you know, trying to explain a cardboard cutout. So I packed him in, and he packs nicely into my spotlight bag, and I packed him that. So as soon as I got into LA, I laid him out on the couch, and with this tour I was sharing my room with somebody, and she hadn't arrived yet. And so I thought, I went off to Universal Studios, and I thought, I better pack him away just in case, because I didn't want to scare her when she walked into the room and saw this cardboard cutout lying on the bed. So I went to Universal, packed him up, and then when I came home, came back to the room, I met her, and it was the gorgeous Pauline from Perth. So we had an absolute ball with travelling around with him. So we went from LA to Vegas. We had him in the Haas casino. We had him out near the, there was a little statue, and we call him Kenny and Dolly, because they look like Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. And so we had beautiful photos of him, and then people would stop us and say, you know, what's this about? What's all this about? And I said, well, this is my late husband. It's a promise I've made to him, travelling around. And they were amazed that I was actually doing it and honouring him. So this was about honouring him, keeping his memory alive, and keeping my promise and travelling around the world. I'll leave it at that, because I can go on and on and on. But I've got huge funny stories. I'm writing the book Travelling with Cardboard Paul. I'm up to chapter 2, so I've got to sit down and write it. So thank you.
So Michelle also has a book called Conversations with Paul. And Michelle also runs a group. Do you want to talk about your group?
I can do that, thank you. So there's Conversations with Paul. So that's about his journey. He died of a rare melanoma in the spine, had 5 spinal surgeries and 1 brain surgery in a 12-month period. So from the day he was diagnosed, 17 months later, he passed away. So that's just about his journey, his fighting a system, and me fighting a system after that, because if you've dealt with anyone's estate, it's just a nightmare. So, and I had so much trouble. But also I run a Being Connected. So that's bringing like-minded people together. You don't have to be spiritual or whatever, but it's so we've got a topic with the 4th Wednesday of the month, so next Wednesday night at the Quest in Flemington, and we are talking about relationships. So for me, I'm talking about, on the spiritual side of it, about self-love and actually putting yourself as number one. And we don't do that as human beings, and especially parents and mothers. We don't look after ourselves as number one. So, love to see you.
I forgot to mention that we are having all of the readings recorded, but thank you to Paul for coming tonight. He's our videographer tonight. Are you for hire?
Possibly.
Possibly. If you pay enough money. So thanks for coming tonight, Paul. So Pamela's going to read some of her memoir set in Tehran. Now,
this is continuing my memoir. We did 3 months touring theatres in Italy, and then we flew to Iran. In a modern Iranian plane, we flew over a landscape of parched, barren land until a mountain range came into sight, and we descended into the capital of Tehran. Our room was in a large brown building on a main street on the 10th floor. The furniture was sparse, but included a sink and a private shower. Gazing through the window, the lovely view of the snow-capped mountains in the distance compensated for the dark surroundings. As the religion was Shiism and Islam, most of the women were clothed in hijabs, long black robes, covering them from head to toe, with slits for their eyes so they could see. The tall, dark-skinned men were quite handsome, with striking coal black hair and heavy eyebrows. The royals were the Pahlavi family, with the Shah being the ruler over this vast land. There were few shops, and food was expensive. The odd cafe displayed rice with dill and fava beans and lamb and chicken shish kebabs, but we were able to buy a cheap meal from a supermarket. We danced in a large cabaret club once a night, which left us with many idle hours in the daytime. I felt uncomfortable at the prospect of walking alone in this strange city, and seeing a travel agency, realised it was a safer way to go on a half-day guided tour. A comfortable coach took me around the city to the main square, holy shrines, and a mosque with stunning architecture. Our last visit was to a mosaic workshop, where we watched skillful workers insert minuscule pieces of coloured wood into intricate patterns on small wooden boxes, and I bought one for Popsy. Bored, I was relieved there were only a few days left of the contract, until Robert surprised us again. We were invited to spend the day with the brother of the Shah at his mansion. We were stunned. Mixing with royalty was the last thing we could have imagined. What else could this man do? Bombarding him with questions, he soon silenced us. Relax and be yourselves. Wear slacks and your favourite top. There's a small swimming pool if you want to chance it, but the water could be cold. Chauffeured limousines would be outside the hotel at 10 a.m. Wow, who could sleep? At the city's edge, a huge white mansion greeted our eyes, surrounded by lush, well-kept green gardens. But April wasn't the season for flowers. We were greeted by the Shah's brother. I've no idea which one he was or can recall his name. Dressed in ordinary clothes, he was surrounded by his ministers, who resembled monks in their long white robes, but they all spoke English and made us welcome. We entered an enormous carpeted room containing several lounges and coffee tables. At the side, tall glass windows opened up to the garden, and in the front, a large cinema screen dominated the room. Several servants offered us drinks and nibbles, but I was keen for a swim. Cherry had also bought a swimsuit and joined me looking fantastic in her black bathers. "You sure the water's warm enough?" Robert inquired, and giving him an impish grin, I stuck a finger into the water. "Are you going in?" Cherry asked impatiently. "It's cold, but let's dive in and swim to the other side. It's not far." We dived together into the freezing water and reached the other side with chattering teeth. After a vigorous rubbing with towels, we were soon dry and felt refreshed from the experience. It was time for lunch, and in the side room, chefs had prepared several rice and kebab dishes with fruit for dessert. Returning to the lounge, our host asked what film we'd like to see, and I spent the afternoon sipping rum and cokes, watching the historical film Anne of a Thousand Days. What a memorable day, but we were soon flying high above the clouds to our next destination, Vienna in Austria.
Richard is going to read, now I've lost you, a new piece of poetry.
Thank you, Blaise. Actually, I'm going to read two pieces, one of which is very old, as in it was written about 50-something years ago, and the other one was written on Monday. First one is In the Red Sundown. When the day is gone and the sun sinks low and the glory envelops the town, when the sea is calm and the breezes blow, I'll return in the red sundown. Perchance when I come, you may not be there, on the shore that you once walked with me, but I'll think of you and the days before, as the sun sinks down to the sea. As the twilight fades and the shadows fall, and the lights twinkle out from the town, my sweetest memory, my mind will recall, will be you and the red sundown. And you know, if you need a friend who is true, sometime in the years far ahead, that you'll find me there, where I wait for you, by the sea, where the sundown is red. The other one is called The Gentle Rain. Rain, gentle, where you are, where I am, connecting, walking rain, your soul, my soul, drifting, scudding, drawing us together across the waves, across space, across time, to someday, one day in ultimate time, the day we walk together in the gentle rain. Thank you.
Antoinette. Antoinette has a new writing project she's going to tell us about. And Antoinette has an affirmation, like a set of affirmation things. One's a workbook, one's a book, and one is a set of cards.
Okay, hi everyone. Normally at the open mic nights I do read from my book, but today I thought I'd actually talk about a new writing project that I've got. It's something I've been thinking about for quite a while, but I finally sort of thought it's time to start. So what I'd like to do is actually to write a series of books called We Inspire Now. And one of the key things I'd like is to have co-authors contribute to each book. And this year I'd like to publish the first one. And so the first book is about inspiring people in their 50s, and perhaps women in particular, but not just women, and just to help them realise that now is really their time to shine, that time to pursue their passion, to really do what they've always wanted to do. And that's the reason I also am seeking co-authors, because I do talk to quite a few people, and there's so many people who want to be aspiring authors and want books published, but they perhaps don't feel confident to publish a whole book. So I thought this would be a great way to have them, heard, so that they can, fulfil their writing passion, be heard, help others, and so I thought this is something that I love to do. So I haven't got a firm title for the book yet, but I'm currently calling it Life Really Does Begin Again at 50. So I'm happy for other ideas on the title. But my inspiration actually goes back to October 2015. So my 3 girlfriends and I were in Thailand to have a trip, and one night we were at Koh Samui Beach, and it was a beautiful night. It was almost, the sun was setting and water was lapping, and it was really beautiful, absolutely beautiful night. And so we started talking about menopause, and we were sharing our experiences, all the wonderful things, hot flushes, night sweats, all those sort of things. And my friend said to me that she's dreading menopause because she feels that it means that her life is over, and that all she's doing is waiting to die. And I thought to myself, are you serious? You really think that? And she actually did. And for me, that was really quite devastating. I thought, really? There are people who feel like that? For me, it was the opposite. I couldn't wait. I thought, I'd have great freedom. It'd be fantastic. Also coinciding with my children being adults, I was a single mum from when they were babies, essentially. And for me, it was like my time to do what I want to do. Writing was one of my big passions, and finally doing it. So I thought about it, her reaction, and that night, I sort of in my hotel room, I felt like I just needed to write and start writing. And so that was my inspiration, because, one of the things I write about is mindset, and how important our mindset is to how we feel. And a negative mindset like that really does impact on your whole health, well-being. So I thought maybe there is something there that I can help and inspire other people. So that's kind of the inspiration for the book. So now I'm seeking authors who'd actually like to contribute to a book, inspiring others and saying that, there is life after 50, it's not the end. And if, in a lot of ways, it's like just the beginning, it's the time to really pursue your passions. So anyone who's interested, please come and see me, because I really want to get this published this year, probably towards the end of the year, not now. But yeah, it's something I'm really passionate about. And if you always wanted to write and feel you can help and inspire others, come and see me.
It's pretty timely because I turned 50 last month.
Yeah.
And I'm going on a big trip. So I won't actually be at open mic night for 2 months.
Yeah.
You'll keep. So I'm going to Spain for 50 days, and I'm going to be walking the Camino Santiago in the north of Spain. So I'm really excited about that. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm leaving Ken and Les in charge of the business. Ken says there might just be a black hole here when I come back. Might burn the place down or something like that. So, but I have a project that I'm going to be doing, and it's going to be 50 days of gratitude, and I'm going to actually put a book together later in the year. But any profits from the book are actually going to go towards a kind of like a scholarship or a grant towards someone over 50 who needs a bit of help, mentorship or whatever, so that they can do a book. So I was going to do a crowdfunding thing before I left, but it didn't happen because it's only a couple of weeks until I go. But I will be putting something on Facebook soon about my trip, and so if anyone feels like following my 50 Days of Gratitude on Facebook or on my blog, you can do that. Or you can ring up Les and get any news. I don't know if I'll have. Everyone says Europe's better internet than here, but no.
Depends where you are.
So yeah, depends. I may not actually be able to put anything up, so I'll have to just wait and see. But anyway, so yeah, that's my 50+ story.
That's great.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Sandra, I might get you up.
Hi, I'm Sandra, and I'm going to read just a couple of poems. About 8 years ago, I had a stillborn daughter, and I used to teach art before that. I was an art teacher at primary school, and then I sort of couldn't walk back into the art room after I lost my daughter. It was just something happened, but this helped me to recover, which was writing, getting back into poetry, which I used to do when I was a kid. So I'll just read 2 poems from here. This first one's called I Held My Baby. I held my baby, so sweet, so pure, not a breath she would take, not a cry to endure. How could my heart continue to beat with my throat so heavy and tears astream? I watched her still body, eyes never to open. No rise and fall from her chest. Her forehead, her fingers I gently kissed, yet her wisdom I felt in my rest. One day I stopped asking why, knowing why would never be enough. It was her stillness that I bonded with. It implored me to be tough. I feel my baby with every breath, guided by love that exists beyond death. I am one with the space that surrounds my heart. I center my energy to keep from falling apart. Whilst I'm surrendered to my grief, I can begin to befriend the existence beyond this body and skin. I am one with all beings, creatures in space, and that is how I connect with Eden's space. This second one is called Compassion Without Pity. Would we talk to a hungry soul? Would we talk to a hungry soul about how full we are? Would we talk to someone in a wheelchair about how fast we run? A grieving individual's lifetime challenge to feel is to feel and share the full spectrum of their love, balanced with respect of a lost one's memories. Compassion starts with courage to observe someone's grieving eyes and to feel the love that extends beyond human vision. A conscious expression, a meaningful breath, a hug, or a gentle, knowing touch will wordlessly share our humble love. A mention of a lost one's name would be a welcome treasure, comforting the bridge between the dimensions of life and death. So I endured about 4 years of grief, and then with the help of another beautiful soul who also had a stillborn daughter, I received a donor egg, and through the help of another woman, because my body wasn't able to do it all, I was able to have Eloise. So through having Eloise, she's given me the strength to relive my life. It's led me to mindful moments, which led me to write this book. And I'm just going to read a tiny bit from here, and then I'll get moving. Thanks you. My negative and positive thoughts have been at war for most of my life. They have constantly been in competition for my attention. After much research, I discovered that my mind is doing its best to keep me safe. I have also discovered that our brain has some built-in and learnt default strategies that are not always helpful. My struggles have inspired me to take a closer look at myself and develop strategies that guide me to a more cohesive internal communication system so I can create moments to hear myself with clarity. This process has enabled me to find a healthier process towards finding the balance between enjoying life and facing life's challenges. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. Thank you. Okay. Are you ready?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
If I can get out of the chair.
Gay is going to read some poems, or a poem, and sing us a song. Is that right?
I'm still on the same themes. Every time I look at my themes of my poems I'm going to read, I'm on a theme of age or weight or fat. And it's the same tonight, really. After that emotional thing, I might actually just sing my song first. Can I tell you I love you? Can I tell you I love you, my dear? Can I tell you how much I think of you every minute, every day of the year? Can I tell you how much I will miss you whenever you go away? So come and sit down in the garden, 'cause I have something to say. Now I know Mary Lou is in love with you, and Susie and Georgie are too. So I'm going to ask you to marry me, 'cause I sure want to marry you. Can I tell you I love you? Can I tell you I love you, my dear? Can I tell you how much I think of you every moment, every day of the year? Can I tell you how much I miss you whenever you go away? So come and sit down in the garden, 'cause I have something to say. Thank you. Now, my husband will go for that because he said, put some pieces of paper in and stop fussing around trying to find it, and I've lost the piece of paper. Right, this is one everybody knows, so my bathers and I. It's come the time that I dread. My bathers are lying on the bed. They look so innocent and sweet, but they challenge me to a defeat. It is a war, no more, no less. And I have to come out victorious. I have to put my bathers on. Everyone else is up and gone. I puff and struggle and turn quite blue. It's like fitting an elephant into a shoe. Over my tummy, but how to squeeze my bottom into something as small as these. I throw myself upon the bed, my face is really getting red. I push and pull and breathe right in. I'm beginning to think I'm going to win. Over the shoulder and all tucked in, but there appears to be lots of me up under my chin. What a relief, the bathers are on. I look in the mirror to see how I've gone. And that's when I give a horrified shout. The bathers are on, but they're inside out. I just can't bother anymore. I'll not go down to the seashore. I'll cut these flaming bathers free, and I'll go and have a cup of tea. Thank you very much.
Diane. Diane's sitting. I can't see anybody. Up the back. Durant Sawa is going to read some poetry.
Okay, I just wrote a couple of inspirational quotes. You can see there. This one's on the daffodil. Last spring, I don't know whether you recall, it was pretty wet, the early spring, pretty windy and wet. And every time I came home from work, I'd see this daffodil, and it was tall and intact, and that inspired me to write this. So I'll read it out to you. Daffodil, tall and strong, she stands, ambitious, probably defiant against the early spring cold, wind and rain. Go forth on your journey, adulthood. Yes, you may stumble, fall or fail. Rise up, try and try again. The true essence of success lies in its actions and outcomes. Meet your path challenges, staying connected with your inner self. Achieve the best you can, each and every day, never giving up. So that was one. And this other one, thank you. This other one actually I wrote just on the weekend. Just one of my friends, she went through a breakdown. I hadn't seen her the whole time. She used to be such a bubbly and just outgoing person. And when I saw her on Friday, she was just really desolate and really upset, crying and shaking. And I just felt really sorry, and it really impacted me because I'm not used to seeing people like that. Again, once I got home, as you know, we've been having a little bit of a drought lately with no water. And so my garden's looking pretty parched. And from there, I just wrote this: from the parched earth and saddened garden, struggling in its thirst to survive, comes forth a vivid hope of life, a gift of autumn. You will emerge again, my friend, stronger and wiser. And that's one of those Nareen bulbs. I don't know whether anyone knows, but it was just so vivid and red, and it just inspired me against all that, bleak and dying garden that I have at the moment, So, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Coral Waite is going to read a short story, Official Delusion. Is that correct? Optical illusion, sorry.
I showed this story to a couple of people and to read, and it didn't go over all that well. So I brought it. It's being told by a much younger woman, so don't fear, never fear. He leaned against the door frame, his jeans straining at the crotch, his smile casual. A black curl flopped seductively over his tan forehead. He was God's gift and he knew it. In your dreams, I thought, though that was my problem. He had been in my dreams every night for the last week, complete with the jeans, a tight white singlet I'd invented myself, and the smile. He adjusted his stance slightly, maybe to make himself more comfortable, maybe to make me look at him. Want something, I said. His smile widened and he laughed quietly. Look, I'm busy, so if you don't want anything. He eased himself away from the wall and looked around. Got any burger rings? Sorry, we're out. He moved towards me and leaned against the counter. What do you stock then? His eyes drifted to where my neckline drooped over the cleft between my breasts, then back to my face. You've got to have something I want. I nodded at the snack food display and turned away. He knew where everything was. This was his local bottle shop. He came here every Friday to get his grog for the weekend. The air vibrated as he grabbed a slab of Carlton Draft and dumped it on the counter. I studied his firm buns as he moved away from me. He was wearing a G-string. I could tell the difference between that and the droopy jocks most of the blokes I knew thought they could get away with. At the doorway he turned. See you round. He grinned and disappeared into the street. In your dreams, I called, horrified with myself. I'd just broken my number one rule. Never let a man know you're interested in him. But I couldn't help it. Every time he came in, I turned back into a 14-year-old, blushing at the drop of a hat, dropping things, jumbling words. He wound his way through the car park, onto the pavement and through the doorway. I was determined to be cool, icy even. His white singlet displayed the hours he's put in at the gym. At the top of his left shoulder was a tattoo. Brendan, it said. He grabbed his usual slab of Carlton Draft. So he said, what's new? I dropped my eyes and gritted my teeth as visions from the night before bombarded me. Nothing much. You? He shook his head and dragged out a beautiful little leather purse from where it was stuffed tightly in his pocket. How's your brother? He murmured. Wasn't sure I'd heard right. What? Martin. Marty? Marty, my gay brother. Got a job in San Francisco, left Saturday. His face clouded. He paid and left. My dreams ended immediately. I wasn't surprised at that. Relieved, really. Just a little disappointed.
Peter is going to read some poems. Welcome.
I think I'll play you this one for starters. This is one called Unexplained. and such stuff as dreams are made on. And I often get a little bit of inspiration for a poem from getting a line from someone else, like William Shakespeare or whoever, and this is one like that. So the quote from William that led to it was, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded in a sleep." So I picked the theme up from there. 'Tis also true that sleeps be woke from, so let magic be the stuff we keep. For we are such stuff as earth is made on, and our bigger life is rounded by the stars. That carbon chemist's spirit lives within us, dwelling first right here in all we are. The atoms and the tissues of our bones and upright form, the molecules and compounds and water's quiet storm. The elements we're made of lie also round about, and to spot their start and finish is where the jury still is out. No ruling of our thinking can ever quite contain the magic in such miracles as sun and sky and rain. Yet mind is where it starts for us, and mind is where it ends. This playground of perception is where the conversation bends. We all perceive things differently, yet we share a common call. For whether we be north or south, the planet holds us all. And whether we be rich or poor, or our skin be black or white, we all lay in our sleeping place and stare out at the night. We all are thinking creatures, on an action's ant's nest sat, moving always to and fro, pursuing this and that. And we all begin as infants, falling bravely from the womb, and all return to whence we came, and will one day be entombed. Entombed within a pyramid, or buried in a field, or scattered to the ocean bed as our ashes are revealed. We all are quite remarkable, although frankly it is true that remarks could never quantify the unexplained in you. We all are quite ethereal, for a power we cannot see is animating everything at the heart of you and me. An invisible intelligence does at our centre hum, in the charge of every particle, and the space between them strung. Yet to the soul awakening, this energy is clear. It no longer seems invisible when it's oh so plain and near. Here in all of nature, from our thinking to the stars, in everything we do and say, in our dreams and all we are. So if this little life we lead be rounded in a sleep, let's turn then to awakening. The daylight strikes us deep. Let us be the stuff of dreams, and never blindly doze. To be or not to be that dream is the line on which to close. And this is a little poem called Going Through My Room, and I've always been a big fan of tidying up. I think it's something that's very sort of spiritually aligned, and sort of when you clean your room, you kind of clean your mind, you know, and sort things out internally. So this poem's about that. Going through my room. Through my room, from time to time, I sweep the corners of my mind, rearrange the shelves and spaces, redirect the storage places, and see there all the many faces of who I am reflected in these walls. A note to self, a poem dear, a business thought, a script idea. The many things I gather here reveal my various calls. And by moving this or sorting that and throwing out or putting back, I come to know they're more exact, the things that matter most. Likewise too, this sifting through reorientates my will. My heart and mind are too refined, and a space comes through to fill. The clutter purged, discarded words, I see again refreshed. The things that move me matter still, and I cast aside the rest. Shall I stop with 2 verses to go? Finish the verses?
Keep going.
Yeah,
Okay.
keep going.
It's quite involved, this rigmarole. 100,000 thoughts are embodied in these many notes and lines that I here sought. So many words and notions are contained within the shelves that the task of going through my room sometimes daunts me to myself. But I'm learning now to wander through these bits and bobs of mine without it overwhelming me that there's only so much time. The clock is ticking as we speak, and the time is coming soon. So I'll simply do the best I can, in life and in this room.
Jackie, there's Jackie. I knew you were down here somewhere. Jackie's going to read about managing stress effectively. Good.
My name's Jackie. I'm a stress management and relaxation specialist. In the previous life, I worked for 20 years in the corporate IT industry. This experience means that I know firsthand how important it is to look after yourself and manage your stresses, because I personally had a breakdown partway through my career and I just couldn't do the slightest thing. I was in tears just organising a meeting. So I now support my clients manage their stresses by coaching them in reframing their mind talk and how to relax, because a lot of people don't know how to relax. They're always on edge, and to relax they don't know what to do if they have time out. So I support my clients in the capacity so they respond calmly to challenging situations rather than have knee-jerk reactions. I can't impress enough on how important it is to know how to reframe your negative mind talk, and then actually have some tools to draw on to know how to relax so that you bring it all together, because then you can go through life a lot more easily and a lot more with more flow and calm and enjoyment. An example of this is one of my clients who worked as a facilities manager at one of the aged care centres. She came to me stressed up to the eyeballs, very angry with where her life was at, both at home and at work. She initially came to me for Indian head massage, which is one of my relaxation treatments, but she was soon experiencing Reiki healings and taking some tailored flower essence remedies, which are part of my repertoire. A number of months after coming to see me, I asked her, would she mind writing a testimonial, because I have a website and a Facebook site, and it's good to promote yourself. And this is what she wrote. I met Jackie at a time in my life that was very stressful. Headaches, anxiety and self-doubt plagued me. I could not find joy in my life. Through her healing hands, I have been able to rediscover my joy for life. Her Indian head massages, Reiki healings and flower essence remedies have reduced my stress. The headaches are gone. I feel confident and now perform better at work. I have also benefited from Jackie's guidance. She has taught me simple yet very effective exercises to still my mind. Her gentle, calming and professional manner have given me a sense of me I thought I had lost forever. If you want a professional individual who is respectful and cares, I highly recommend Jackie. When she wrote this for me, I thought, wow, that's priceless. I couldn't have made that up myself. This client went on to get her Ailing Aged Care Centre through accreditation with minor recommendations, never heard of previously. She also got nominated and won Employee of the Year across all the aged care centres of that one in Victoria. At home, her husband, her children no longer walked on eggshells around her, worried about her mood swings, and they started enjoying family time together. Her turnaround was incredible. So I was really quite overwhelmed and humbled when she wrote this and told me what was going on in her life afterwards. So the moral of the story is, if you're not comfortable where you're at, there are things you can do to support yourself. And I'm here at the end of this session if you want to have a chat too. Thank you.
Okay. Joanne Collins. Joanne is going to read, I'm not sure what it is, but it's called Mystic's Poetry. Mystic Sweetheart. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Joanne. I guess I'm new to writing poetry. I've been writing poetry for about 10 months. It's called Mystic Sweetheart. Oh, a yearning for the nobleman's hand, hearing his narrative flow from his mouth, delivering sparkle fingers. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. A clasp of arms tightly wrapped around a nobleman now cherishes such an embrace, flowing a natural feeling of closeness, an instinct of passion. During the light of the morning, only a nobleman can understand. Significant words rushed in her mind, but hesitantly retained. Instead, Hanks-like eyes turned to find. Fixed on her, stuck in a trance-like gaze, talking to her through his eyes. Within a split second, then snap out of it. Then he snapped out of it. A mutual understanding of moments like these. Enjoy gazing over such sweet, luscious lips. Close his eyes, feels waltzed in song. Natural traits feel him. Oh, his captivating song voice. Get whisked away upon pink, fluffy fairy floss. Standing feet untouched by ground. Silhouette-shaped stands under coloured lights, making out his luminous shadow in the dark. Spotlight crosses and shines across her attentive look. Receiving a natural fiery blaze, climbing through every pocket in air in her skin, fanning out, gaining momentum. Masculine fingers strumming classic strings, making art look effortless to the eye of the beholder. The narrative is written, containing words of fondness, containing words of truth, containing words of love. A nobleman has not the opportunity, words which are hardest to say, words written in her eyes, words a nobleman already knows, words long to speak, words already spoken in her dream once. Hovering upon cotton clouds, a free-flowing, freed mind, let go and it pours. Coming back to reality, she just sits here, words looking back at her, waiting in deliverance. A walking journey found from a unique path, overflowing with love. That's it.
Cameron West. Who's Cameron? Hiding up the back. Cameron is reading. Don't jump at this. I'm not sure what Cameron's reading. You can tell us.
Hello. I'm reading a story which doesn't have a title, but I have called it Arthur and the Norms. And last month I came here and I was hoping to read a story, but I hadn't sufficiently prepared that. And then later in the night I realised that I had this story which I could have read. So I'm reading it now. It's the start of a longer story which I've just jotted down the beginning of, and it's what is it? Sort of set in the form of a crime thriller with all the cliches, but it's kind of actually a science fiction story. So see how we go. And you saw it, did you? Arthur asked, raising his cap and squinting. The weather was blustery. Dark clouds loomed above the bitumen and moved in a slow progression. Some way beyond the slope, the ocean murmured, deep and continuous. A drizzle fell. Out of nowhere it come, the baker repeated, with no less urgency on this occasion than the last half dozen. Out of nowhere. A flash of blue light. They didn't even break. The man swung his neck, following the road ahead, as though tracking a vehicle moving at speed. Some 20 metres ahead, on the edge of the road, just beyond the white line, a thick canvas sheet was spread out. A form pressed through the stiff, starchy material, vague in definition. Yet obscured though the figure was, its significance was unambiguous, and it felt disconcertingly out of place here. A human body. Arthur knelt. Out of nowhere, he summarised, nodding mournfully. Arthur knelt, removed a magnifying glass from a pocket. The heavy wind buffeted his trench coat, his upturned collar fluttering against his neck. No marks, no debris, he noted to himself. Craning his neck, stiff from an altercation the previous night, he turned back to the baker. What colour was the vehicle? That's just it, the man replied. It had no colour. No colour? It was like transparent, like it was see-through. Steve, the officer interrupted, gruff and laconic, the voice of someone whose authority was beyond question. Show our man Arthur the artist's impression. The sketched outline resembled a car with a very low profile. No doors were visible, nor windows. Effectively, it was entirely composed of lines. The sky cracked and rumbled. Two men rushed in, carrying a stretcher. Then it began to pour. This was the first occurrence. Okay. Her short black hair, bright eyes, an asymmetric smile and a dimpling of one cheek. He woke with a sharp intake of breath. Her image vanished. Heading to the bathroom, he pondered, groggily, whether love was really so strong a thing, or whether he merely needed it to be, clinging to hope as to a talisman. He ran the tap to warm. Arta, a voice calling from afar with a warm, reverb-heavy sonority. He splashed water against his face. The image vanished again. When he poked his head back through the door, the clock read 4:21 a.m. Okay. As the razor slid across his chin, it made a softly scratching sound. He looked into the mirror, tired but not too bad, he thought. Prominent angular line of the cheekbones and the red, protruding worm burrow of a scar that ran vertical upon his chin. These details made up for his narrow face and eyes, soft blue, and as he had been informed on many occasions, intelligent. Okay.
Rosemary. Rosemary is going to read an essay called Come Dine With Me.
Okay, here we go. I have had a love affair with dinner tables since childhood. Each night, us kids would tumble noisily into the dining room and sit ramrod straight around our large mahogany dining table, bookended by Dad and Mum. Grace was said and the meal began. This was the opportunity to have your say, and if you could get in first, which was a challenge, let me tell you, with 8 kids, you held rank as long as you could without pausing. The moment you did, another sibling would cut in and take over the conversation. Of course, there were rules to be observed. Do not speak when someone else is, do not speak when you have food in your mouth, and elbows off the table. We were taught to eat slowly, savoring and digesting each morsel with a politely closed mouth, which was hard as we needed our mouths empty and open when the current speaker stopped to take a breath. Our dinner tables were a glorious combination of eating, enjoyment, and thought-provoking conversation. I loved my childhood meal times. When I married, the dining table continued its center of importance. My husband and I worked in the hotel industry, so our lives revolved around food and wine. Hotel friends came over for dinner often, and an elaborate menu and appropriate wines were chosen. I retreated to the background, chopping onions and garlic, stirring the stock, setting the table. My husband was the star, creating the menu and producing the finished result, and so he got the kudos. Brilliant meal, Richard, they gushed. And it was. He was a brilliant cook, while I continued to be his not-so-brilliant helper. He was so intimidatingly good that I did not cook at all until we had our first child and moved to England. We lived smack bang in the middle of the Shakespearean countryside in a half-timbered Elizabethan home, my kitchen overlooking the beautifully manicured English country garden. What an inspiration. And my 1-year-old daughter was wonderfully encouraging. She ate everything I made with gusto. Yes, I could do this. The only cookbooks on hand were my husband's favorite, La Gastronomie and Escoffier, which completely freaked me out with their complex recipes. I searched his hotel school exercise books for the easiest recipe I could find and made the exotically named but dead boring chicken fricassee. In desperation, I called my mum in Sydney, who walked me step by step through each of her favorite recipes. Now, this was a level I could compete with. Home cooking versus hotel cooking? No contest, right? My confidence slowly grew as we moved around the globe with my husband's hotel employers. Food broke all language and cultural barriers, and soon my live-in help were sharing their culinary secrets with me. Yaya taught me her pastel de zanahoria in Santiago. Gulnaz showed off her art in making börek in Istanbul. Alicia introduced me to chiles rellenos in Culos Cabos, and Shaosui in Beijing drenched everything in oil. But her jassi was to die for. And Bakumari in Kathmandu, ooh, she was the most creative of them all. Once she served a strange-tasting meal featuring nothing more than a stringy-looking green plant and a yellow curry sauce. We meekly ate it and then politely asked her what the vegetable was. She said she didn't know, but it was something she had found growing in the back garden. Knowing the state of our garden, I thought, great, we just ate weed curry. Later we found out that the curry was entirely based on one vegetable, dill. Bakumari was also very proactive. I had purchased several packets of spices and containers in which to put them, and Barker Murray took it upon herself to cut out the label from each packet and stick it on each container she filled. She then proudly showed me her work, 15 different spice containers, each bearing the label, used by December 2001. Several years later, I returned to Australia as a single mum, full of cooking confidence and determined to recreate my fond dining table childhood memories. I plunged right in and invited 18 guests for a lunch featuring a challenging recipe of shrimp and fennel risotto. A true labor of love, it was an absolute knockout success. Conversation flowed as freely as a wine that afternoon, and guests lingered long into the sunset. The years of buying Chinese takeaway and heating them up in separate saucepans to pretend to my guests that I had made the entire meal myself were now long gone. No longer intimidated by my ex-husband's high culinary standard, I happily free fell into trial and error, finally landing right side up in my very own kitchen. I have now come full circle to the successful dinners of my childhood. Take one dining table, fill with food, place interesting, humorous, intelligent, and fearless people around it, shake well. As Julia Childs once said, the only real stumbling block is fear of failure. In cooking, you've got to have a what the hell attitude. That attitude has served me well in other areas too. So,
Robin is going to read some poems.
I like to observe people, so this one's called Community. I like that, exclaims the French lady, referring to my bright shirt, as I enter the patisserie at the local shops. I'm sure over time a small group of stores has many stories of their own, like the girl at the small supermarket who knows the little old lady who walks a kilometre every day, come rain or shine, pushing her jeep to collect provisions. According to the girl, the old lady also does her laundry every day. Bob, with a bushy white beard, a retired South Australian postman who takes coffee in the same seat every morning at the quaint coffee shop. He greets me with, "Hello, Robert," although my name is Robin. Don't have the heart to tell him and the barista I'm not a Robert. Girls at the post office who chat about menus, what's for dinner, and their footballer sons. The op shop ladies who almost hug me when I drop off more of my unwanted treasures. I'm sure if I continue to scratch the surface, more interesting characters and stories will emerge. I'm off to explore a little more. Sure beats shopping online. This one's called Friend. Sunlight somewhere up above, heavy pollution, but not impossible. Rough, cobbled street, houses scrambling for the light. Why did I suddenly look up to that tiny paned window of the decrepit house? I see why. The woman was observing my slow progress. From down here she looked so very old, leaning on the ledge, leisurely taking in the scene. Two never before met, but I felt I knew her. Waving, I thought maybe I was too forward, but slowly the wave was returned. I smiled and continued my exploration of Shanghai. Thank you.
Steve Degata is going to read
some prose.
Single but not unattached.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm single. I was married for 18 years, but sadly my wife passed away 6 years ago, leaving me as the sole parent to 3 children. So although I'm currently single, I'm not unattached. It's because my marriage commitment still exists through the care and support that I must provide to my children. This impresses people, mainly because I'm a man. A woman in the same situation would be expected to grin and bear it. But because I'm a man, people often say to me, "Oh Steve, you're so good by sticking by them," which is puzzling because it's not like I had a choice in the matter. Or did I? Have I been wasting my life looking after these children when I could have been gallivanting around the countryside? Nice thought, but not true. So, as eloquently put in the wording of our respective wills, which were prepared before we had children, any issue of our relationship would become the responsibility of the surviving partner. It seemed odd at the time to refer to children as issue. But since I've been around, I've often referred to them as little shits, so it makes sense. So our issue and now my responsibility, although I'm free to enter into another personal relationship, As their one and only parent, my children are more protective of me and perhaps more sensitive to having to share my affections with a significant other than they would be if there was another parent in the mix. Still, about 18 months ago, I did actively enter the dating scene and ended up forming a bond with a significant other. This was a positive experience and I learned many things from it. Not the least of which was that, although I'm not as good as I once was, I'm as good once as I ever was. Sadly again, when the specific demands of that relationship start to interfere with the commitments from my previous relationship, aka the little children, there was only one way it could go, and I had to end it. So here I am, single, but in a committed relationship with 3 frustratingly wonderful significant others, and that's my lot, for now at least. Second one's on the same theme. I'm calling it teenager taming. So as I explained in the other one, my wife fortunately died of breast cancer and left me alone with 3 children to look after, which is really quite selfish of her, I thought. And those what were children 6 years ago are now teenagers. Well, the eldest is 20, but the fact that she doesn't have a teen at the end of her age doesn't mean a thing. The other 2 are 14 and 17. So actually it's not so bad to be living with teenagers. They keep me young in a way. I don't have to worry or apologise for swearing around the house. And we can share a laugh watching movies like Ted and Team America. Well, we've watched Ted together, but I think I'll actually give Team America a few years. We're currently in the final stages of toilet training, which seems to be going on forever. Of course, they know how to use the toilet and be able to wipe their own bottoms for a long time, or since they've been little. But it's only now that the youngest one has worked out what a reasonable amount of toilet paper to put between flushes is. And this means that I can finally retire the wire coat hanger that I use to help break up the wads of paper that get stuck in the air. But of course, the final stage of toilet training, which they are yet to master, is cleaning the toilet. They know the toilet brush exists, but cannot yet bring themselves to touch it lest they will forever be contaminated by the same germs that come out of them every day. I thought that if the toilet dirty for long enough, they would be embarrassed enough to clean it before friends came over. But no, I guess they see that dirty toilet as more of a reflection of my bad housekeeping rather than theirs. And let's face it, as a single dad, I can get away with it.
Lillian, where's Lillian? Up the back. Come on, Lillian. Got 2 readers left. Lillian and then Shell. I don't know what Lillian is reading. Have you changed your name, my dear?
No.
No?
I have.
So the newly married Lillian.
So this story is called The Prince Who Would Not Grow. It's about a prince who's wouldn't grow. And his mother, the queen, the father, the king, is off always on whatever kings do out of the castle. And the mother, the queen, realises she has to do something about this child who isn't growing. And she seeks the advice of a wise woman in the village who gives her 3 tasks. So the first task was to take her son, to dress as a serving boy, and take the son to sit at the gates of the city and observe people coming in and out, which she does. And the second task was to, I think I did read the second task, didn't I? Shut up. The second task was to take the prince into the village square and let him play with some of the other children. So the third task is that the prince actually gets to leave the city walls and go out with a servant. So he's on a horse. To his right, there stretched what from the castle windows had only ever been to him a dark smudge. Now the king's forest began to take form. Bushes and trees of all shapes and shades emerged from the general greenness. The attendant slowed his horse to a trot as they turned aside from the main road and entered the fringe of the forest. The clattering of the horse's hooves on the stone road was muffled now by unpaved earth. Above them the forest canopy closed over, ushering an instant coolness and dimness and quiet. "I'm to wait for thee here," said the attendant. and he showed the boy how to read the position of the sun in readiness of their departure time. And then Edward moved on, walking his horse slowly away between the trees, alone for the first time in his life. The air that he inhaled was sharp and fresh. It smelt of growing things. His gaze flew from plant to fallen trunk and up the tall thighs of trees to where their hair scraped the sky. Few sounds escaped him, those scuttlings and twitterings and creaks and rushes of bird and creature. And then there came a tinkling song which told him that he neared the stream, the boundary of his excursion. Here he dismounted to drink from cold, clear water and eat from his basket. And as he sat on the bank, crumbs from the bread in his hands fell into the water below, and before long a silvery flash passed just beneath the surface, and he perceived that a fish had come to eat. Then it was gone, slipping away into the depths. Above him, a rustling caught his ear. He glanced up in time to see a bird come to rest on the slender branch of a nearby tree, causing the branch to spring for a moment, with the bird riding up and down thereon, its little head turning sharply from side to side before lifting in flight once again. And thus did the complete freedom of the young prince dawn on him, for no one stood watching or guiding, teaching or curbing. He was completely alone. Each direction lay open to him, with none hovering to suggest or disapprove. Why, he could ride across the stream and pass into the deeper forest on the other side if he so wished. Why, he could walk right into this stream, thought he, with shoes on or off. Of a sudden, Edward urgently wanted to step in with bare feet, so he tore off his boots and let first one foot and then the other slip into the cool water. Stones made an uneven surface and he was unaccustomed. He trod carefully, trying each step before trusting it with his weight. The water licked around his ankles. He found that he was smiling broadly, deeper and deeper, faster and faster. Suddenly he took a great sweep at the water with his foot, and the splash he created threw water into his own eyes and mouth, causing him to gasp with surprise and then delight. He ran, slowly at first and awkwardly, kicking and splashing until he tripped and fell headlong, face first, and scrambled up, spitting water and rubbing his eyes and gasping at the cold. Edward climbed out of the water quickly and began to stamp and wave his arms in an effort to warm up. He searched for a sunny patch and lay quickly on the grass, stretched out flat, teeth chattering. With the side of his face pressed into the ground, hands clutching tussocks, he closed his eyes. A stillness from the earth passed through him. His thoughts took on a looser shape. They drifted like cloud. Did he sleep? Perhaps. When he woke, had some knot within been unravelled? Perhaps. Edward walked back to his horse, enjoying the crunch of the leaves and stones beneath his feet. As he thrust one boot into the stirrup and swung the other over his steed, it occurred to him that he could reach by himself. He led the horse across the stream, not because it was forbidden, simply because he could. Together they passed through trees and shrubs in a sanctuary silence. So many shades of green, the beauty of great wide trunks. A horseman stood in front of him, barring his way. For a moment Edward shrank back, then he remembered. "I am the king's son," he declared. "Stand aside." The man's eyes narrowed, and then he threw his head back and let out a great laugh. "Why, it is the scamp I found in my blanket. You are ever determined to join your father the king, are you not?" Staring at him defiantly, Edward too recognised the horseman. The man gave of his head a small bow, and turning his horse beckoned Edward to follow. Thus did the boy, the short prince, meet his father after much time apart, and ride back to the castle with him, sitting upright with dignity. And thus did the queen emerge from her chambers, face flushed with her own accomplishment, to greet her husband and son with dignity. And thus indeed did the wise woman receive her payment, for the prince was flourishing in all ways.
Lucky last, Shell is reading a story called 27 Hours.
Hi, I'm Shell. My thing is true stories. Last year, I read part of 27 Hours where Tim was on a long-awaited holiday to Thailand to join his friends Stu and Claire. His agenda was simple. 1. Buy a t-shirt. 2. Take in a Muay Thai fight. And 3. A ping pong show. But his tuk-tuk driver had other ideas. Instead, he was diverted to a jewellery shop and then to a derelict zoo where he was almost blinded by a spitting taipan snake. After ditching his tuk-tuk driver, he wandered aimlessly and got trapped down a dead-end lane by a group of beggars infected with leprosy. That's where we pick up the story. I smiled, but the lepers stared through me. I giggled nervously, hoping they'd take pity on me, but they just kept shuffling forward like the zombies from the Michael Jackson Thriller video. That's it. I'll amuse and confuse them by breakdancing. I busted a move, hoping they'd had a sense of humour, but their faces remained fixed. Shit. What do I do now, I thought. Psychological measures hadn't worked. All I had left were physical ones. I was boxed in from all sides except up, and flying was not an option. With a brick wall on one side and the earth below, I had two choices, two bad choices. Option 1, I could run through the infected beggars, but I'd have to bash past them, risking physical contact. Option 2 was the one I took. I looked straight at the group inching towards me, waved nervously as a parting gesture, revved myself up, did a 0 to 60 run, then slammed my body into the corrugated iron with all my might. 2 sheets burst from their flimsy nail bindings and went sprawling over the next street. Phew, I was out. Onlookers stopped and stared. I was bruised and embarrassed, but not infected. I had 8 hours left. I spent the next 2 in a long boat through the harbour and got to the place where I took in a Muay Thai fight. After my own corrugated iron bruising, seeing someone more badly battered somehow lifted my spirits. With the Muay Thai fight ticked off my list, I jumped back in my tuk-tuk and asked my driver to take me to a sex show. It was now midnight. We drove for nearly an hour through darkened streets and long dirt roads before coming up to a huge 2-storey timber building in the middle of nowhere. My driver took me to the front door and knocked. I was met by a small, frail Thai man wearing a Hawaiian shirt. He chaperoned me to the main room, where I was met by a scantily dressed woman. Now, I can't do a Thai accent, so forgive me. "Hi, what's your name?" "Tim." "Where are you from?" she said. "Australia." In the audience, I could see a couple of elderly men, each with a very young Thai girl or boy. I couldn't be sure. The girls on the stage had thick black marks. This is a bit X-rated, so be ready. The girls on the stage had thick black markers and were writing things on paper using their vaginas. The girl I was talking to walked over to the stage, grabbed a texter and proceeded to write on a piece of paper. She then headed over and gave it to me. It read, "I love you, Tim." "Nice handwriting," I replied. With that, I ventured up to the back of the stalls. Everyone was very laid back and seemed to understand the culture of the place, except one group, my fellow Aussies. 2 blokes planted themselves firmly in the centre of the front row and made themselves known to the crowd by wolf whistling at every girl as they swilled on their ales, growing louder with every swig. I couldn't stand the yobbo tourists and I didn't want to be connected with them. I sat in the shadows of the back row feeling embarrassed by their behaviour. The curtains parted and 4 girls came out. They formed a square around a huge mound of balloons. In their hands they held a tube of PVC piping. In a synchronised move, the girls kicked up the balloons, and just as my thoughts couldn't make heads nor tails of the event, one girl blew a dart through the PVC pipe at the balloon, popping it on contact. Cheers and hollers followed from the audience, but the Aussie blokes up front were more than cheering. "I've got a tube you can blow on, lovey," one said. Can I pop your date?" said the other. I doubt the girls were listening or would have even understood the words, but the tone was easily translatable. It was disgusting. I was just glad I was hidden in the back stalls. On the stage, one of the Thai girls aimed her backside at a balloon located in front of the 2 loudmouths, while the other 2 girls continued to pop balloons with the darts. With one gyration of her hip, the balloon was gone. The blokes roared again, but this time one of the hollers was different. It sounded like pain. It was. A dart had ricocheted off the dance floor and embedded itself in the shoulder of one of the loudmouths. I burst out laughing. Now this was a show, and karma at work, right there. I didn't stay for any more of the show. I had 3 hours left, just enough time to travel back to the airport. Everything on my list was ticked off. I was headed to Koh Samui for a much-needed break, a chance to switch my brain off before I returned to Perth to wind down my painting business, pack my bags, and visit Brigitte grave one last time. I'd had 24 hours in Thailand. In 27 days, I'd be returning to Melbourne. I was going home. That's the last time I'm going to read anything from Tim's autobiography. I'm going to say this out aloud to make it true. I'm going to start writing my own stuff and read that next time.
Okay, we've got a couple of announcements. One is that Anna is going to be, during May, there's a, I guess you call it a charity called White Line Bailout. The White Line Bailout Program, which is raising money to help kids who are sort of getting into trouble. And Anna tells me that for every $10,000 that we invest in these kids, we save $500,000 in jail costs per year.
Each child.
Each child, so that's amazing. So Anna's going to be actually sleeping in a cell overnight, and she's wanting to raise money. So this is just a shout out to maybe if you could help out, go to bailout.org.au and look for Anna's name. It's Anna Del Vergini, how do you pronounce it?
It's close enough.
Virgin, which we will actually put in the newsletter and on Facebook. Alright? So we'll share that. Okay, any other announcements, Les, before I do
Intro fiction.
Oh yeah, tomorrow night. Tomorrow's Thursday, isn't it? Les is teaching Introduction to Fiction from 7 to 10 p.m. So there are a couple of spots left if anyone would like to attend that workshop.
King Lake.
King Lake, we'll be doing our King Lake writing retreat in August this year. King Lake has actually been sold. For those of you who have been to King Lake for our retreat, which Gay has, and Anna, and Noni, and Belle, there's a few of you in the room. And Lisa. I don't know if anyone knows about Karma King Lake, but it was burnt during the Black Saturday bushfires and was rebuilt afterwards, and it's an amazing property, and we use that for our retreats. The owner, I think, is just exhausted after going through all of that, so she has sold up. But the new owners are going to be running it as it was, and she's going to be still involved in the running of it, which is really cool. So to give them time to get used to the new property, we're going to be running in August instead of May, and I'm not going to be here in May anyway, so I can't do it. So, anything else, Les?
Publish for profit.
Publish for profit. And we also actually have a flyer up on the desk, on the table here, if anyone wants to have a look at the workshops that we run. And there is a mailing list if you'd like to go on our newsletter mailing list. And we do have a group called Publish for Profit, and that's where we get together and brainstorm ideas about how to market our books and make money from it. Okay, so this month we have this book as our door prize. We have just re-released this book. I don't know if anyone knows anything about Joffa. He is a well-known Collingwood cheer from the cheer squad. Some people think he's a bit of a larrikin, some might call him a few other things, but it's actually a misconception. He does a lot of work for a lot of charities, and this story, aside from being about football, is actually about his life, and it's actually quite an interesting story. He was homeless at the age of 14. His mother just threw everything out onto the front lawn, and he was living on the streets for a while. So it's about his story and how football really was what saved him from being on the streets, and Anna would attest probably to kids who end up where he could have ended up. So we published this, how many years ago? Almost 3 years ago. But we've re-released it with some new material, and we finally got something for the back from Eddie Maguire, because it's, you talk to them and they say, oh, talk to my assistant. The assistant never gets anything to you, but we've finally got that today. So it's not on this particular copy, but it will be after this. So this is our door prize today. Has everyone got their tickets ready? This is actually the only copy of this book, by the way, at the moment, till we get them printed. Did Paul get a ticket?
No, give me one.
Can you give me one, please?
No.
And give me the secondary one?
You want to pick a Paul?
Ah, it's alright. You can go on.
That's not an employee.
He's a leader.
Okay. They're well folded.
Try to make it neat.
It says red, but that looks like pink to me. A52. Patrick. You have now. Number 52 for open mic, number 52. That's pretty cool. Okay, does anyone else have anything they'd like to announce, or any events coming up they'd like to tell us about?
Blaise, that must be wrong, because that's two off one another. It's not being one off.
Yeah.
It's usually one off.
Yeah, so everyone sat next to you in the hopes of winning something. Okay, so thanks all for coming tonight. Great to see some new faces and some old faces and some young faces. We'll be back here again as normal next month, but I won't be back here until June. So I'm sure the boys will look after you. I don't know who's going to be emceeing next month. That will be for them to fight over. So please hang around. I think we've already gone through a lot of wine. It sounds like we've run out of white wine, have we, Les? But there's champagne in there. There's lots of champagne. So if you want to open a bottle of champagne, but there's lots of red wine. So, there's coffee and tea as well. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next month.